All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Rough Report. Probably going to be another short one because, just got a lot of things going on in my life right now. Kind of planning to move to a different city. We're going to move on out Ottawa way within the next month, so there's been a lot going on with that. I've had a lot of music stuff going on. If you haven't checked out my new cover on the Rough Go SoundCloud, I only released it on SoundCloud because, it's a cover. And check it out. The Rough Go on SoundCloud. I covered Youth by Daughter as a part of the fundraising contest I had a while back, and I finally got the song finished. Let me tell you, working full-time, doing a podcast, doing music, it's a lot. So sometimes certain things have to fall by the wayside. But there's a lot to talk about. Few fun things. We're going to be covering a bit of the RCMP at Winnistoten. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. Winnistoten. I think that's right. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. Thank you for appreciating my cover song, Jessica. Madly appreciate your suggestion in making me do that, as she was the contest winner. It was a lovely challenge to try and meet, and I'm working on a new song right now. Here, I'm going to get the theme music turned down. There was there was a song I actually finished recording before I did the cover, but I wanted to prioritize getting the cover up there, so I was working on mixing that a little bit today. Hopefully when I make the move out to Ottawa, thank you, Jessica. When I make the move out to Ottawa, hopefully I'm going to have a lot more busyness in terms of the music stuff. I'm looking forward to getting back on that horse and playing shows regularly and stuff like that. But like I said, with everything that's going on, some things just fall by the wayside. Let's start with the problem in Winnistoten. So right now, Winnistoten camp leader, journalist arrested as RCMP enforced pipeline injection in northern BC. Slato, also known as Molly Wickham, was among 15 people arrested Friday as police action continued against opponents at the Coastal GasLink pipeline, according to her sister Jennifer, media coordinator for the GID. I again apologize if I'm not pronouncing this rightly. Gidimton checkpoint. Now, there's any time these arguments come up, we're always kind of fed the same argument going over and over again, and we fail to reach any kind of conclusion here, where the elected chiefs, basically the company Coastal GasLink, or the Coastal GasLink pipeline rather, the purveyors of it did some politicking in kind of bypassing the hereditary chiefs, which hold a lot of political power within those First Nations, and kind of went with the more elected chiefs, which is a model that was developed through, like the elected chiefs were a model developed through the Indian Act, essentially as a process of colonization upon the native peoples, to basically try and further assimilate their style of government into a more familiar Western structure. So basically, I mean, it's not to say that the elected chiefs are less important to native peoples, but I think it's important to recognize that it is a model that was developed through the scope and the interest of colonization. And they commonly use the politicking and the structure of the Indian Act to override the greater interest of the native communities. And it creates a politically complicated situation. So you can have a lot of people, Canadians of, let's say, colonist descent, who say, well, the company did everything right. They followed the rules. They did what they were supposed to by reaching out to these communities and getting their approval. But they largely did so by overriding or negating the hereditary chiefs that were much more entrenched in the traditions and many of the interests of native peoples. So it basically creates a situation that is convenient for the colonist end of things to say, we have the right to extract these resources, and that when the hereditary chiefs flex their power in order to try and defend this land, it gives the Coastal GasLink people, and then by extension, of course, those that protect capital and the interests of colonist capital, namely in the RCMP, to enact upon these injunctions and say, I believe the injunction that said the native peoples that were defending this river that they wanted to drill underneath, a river that is considered sacred to the people around there, to say that, well, the agreement's made and we can enforce this injunction, and we're gonna move in. We gave you 2 months notice to get out. And as far as the people who are in support of the hereditary chiefs and want to defend this land and make sure that this colonist interest is not going to cause further environmental damage to both their territory and the world at large, namely in how many areas of BC are flooded right now, for example. It muddies the waters where it can, and for anybody who wants to or has a sort of vested interest in defending the native peoples there and standing up for them and standing up for their interests, it makes for a complicated situation, and where there can now be like many legal precedents going back and forth. And I think it's very much plays within the interest of, colonist interests, which largely, in my view, in my more sort of socialist view, is an interest of capital and class divide and stratification of people to essentially have them in conflict with each other in the interest of basically extracting resources from the land without any accountability or consequences. So, whenever I feel like we try and discuss these things, well, it's like, well, the gas company's following the law. And as one of the other topics we're going to touch on today in the Rittenhouse trial, well, the main thing is we have to recognize that Western law and how we've enforced it as overall superior has its intrinsic flaws. And there are things we should criticize and second guess and look at and wonder, why is this legal? because it seems such an obvious thing to say at this point, but what is legal is not a basis of morality. What is legal is not a basis of what is ultimately good for people. That is the majority of people, or the greater amount of people, and working people. And so the fact that you can say this is all legal while it's causing noticeable damage, and we're noticeably not taking climate change seriously, we're going to come to a conflict, and these conflicts are going to continue until we take more seriously the fact that we are causing damage, whether it be legal or not. We have to question the legality of that and if it's good, rather than just going, well, that's the way it is. I think like a main thing I've been running into these days is people just essentially not questioning their assumptions about many things. I think I'll get deeper into that if I'm not being clear enough. So basically, like in a lot of cases, don't think that the elected chiefs are always, at odds with the hereditary chiefs. In many cases, they get along great. Sometimes they're even the same person or same people and have their interests very much aligned and work together. But it seems, through moneyed interests, they're purposefully trying to drive a wedge within these communities and create an air of political conflict and political confusion, ultimately in the interest of being able to extract these resources, again, without proper accountability towards the people that live there, and this country as a whole and the world as a whole. Because we know all these gas companies, all the gas leaders of this world decades ago were fully aware of what the damage that climate change and what the burning of fossil fuels leading to climate change was going to do. And it's evidence that they purposely buried. And now through, again, further politicking, manipulation, money, they're pressuring that to just continue a little longer. And to the point where we're having regular environmental disasters now, like at an increasing rate, where it's affecting not only the livelihoods of indigenous peoples, but colonists as well. When you have entire cities and towns and areas of cities becoming completely flooded as a direct result of this environmental destabilization, they have to be held accountable for that. You can't just simply extract profit and resources without recognizing the greater impacts. And, that's the whole socialist project that we're trying to fight for, right? Is that, power has to be accountable. Power has to be accountable to the greater amount of people. It has to pay for their dues for trying to extract a living off of this land, whether it be at the expense of people, at the expense of resources, at the expense of the environment. They have to be accountable to that, and in whatever capacity that may be, accountable to that in every bit of their profit goes towards, fixing the land, environmental resources being replenished, and, essentially cleaning up after themselves and developing cleaner alternatives. We're at a point now where the extraction and burning of these types of resources should not be profitable. It should only continue to happen at this point because it needs to, out of, the necessity of, let's say, the economy, keeping people working, keeping the machine running. And then we take every bit of that profit, throw it into developing the alternatives, and we can have a much smoother and more serious transition into not burning fossil fuels. But unfortunately, we're not at that point. We're still allowing the muddied interest to carry forward. I think the only way to do it, sadly, because it's a far reach, is to nationalize these resources. So there isn't a profit margin to be had whatsoever. And many people are going to go, well, that sounds extreme, just like nationalizing a resource. But, what's extreme is entire cities and sections of cities and towns losing everything through no fault of their own. And because these companies want to extract maximum profits and just say, to heck with the fallout, right? These situations are complicated, in my opinion. It is that simple. The main motivator here and the main problem here is that it comes down to the profit motive and the profit incentive and the ongoing interest of the capitalist project. And that kind of brings me to the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I'm almost exhausted on this topic because I spent way too much time arguing with family, friends, perfect strangers about the outcome of this trial. And, it's so complicated to say. To a certain degree, I can understand why certain people who are, say, not as politically aware or as media consciously aware of the greater systemic subtext that is taking place here can look at that trial and can look how it proceeded and go, well, I can understand how this was self-defense. I can understand why he was let off. And to a certain extent, I can understand it too, in terms of how the laws currently function, what they're designed to do, and hey, the system works. The system works precisely as it's designed to do, to not have accountability towards the type of people who would sooner defend property over human life, where the threat of violence to defend property weighs over human life. We have a structure that protects that interest. And so when the fallout of this is that, well, technically speaking, everything he did was legal, we should very much question that under a narrow exemption of the law, was he allowed to have that AR-15 out in a public place with the distinct interest of defending property? And, the idea that he was there as a medic is ridiculous. He had no markings to indicate he was a medic. If anything, medics carry pistols, but he wasn't old enough to carry a pistol. For some reason, under the narrow exemption of the law, as a 17-year-old, he was allowed to open carry a rifle, a larger, more intimidating weapon that is much more imposing and sparks a sense of threat into the protesters that would see it, because it's pretty obvious what side of the fence Kyle is standing on. That in itself can be understood as an active threat. When you're standing there saying, like, to the people that are protesting, to the people that are walking by, to the people that are trying to demonstrate against the power source, against the institutional power, that I'm going to defend this institutional power as a private citizen, and if you do anything that I consider stepping out of line, I can severely maim you and or kill you. the presence in that sense stands as a threat. It would be no different than, well, not no different, but it's almost like, when the riot police come in and start, banging their batons against their plastic shields, wearing their big armor, putting on the big show. It's shock and awe, right? It's a form of political intimidation. And when a private citizen does this without government sanction and on their own free will, that technically falls under definition of terrorism, to use the threat of violence for political ends. That is currently, for as fragile, flimsy, and flawed that definition of terrorism can fall under, that still fits it. So if you're talking about the letter of the law and, well, it's legal, then, there's a lot of confusion and gray area there. But what you need to understand about the law, and I'm no legal expert, and I try not to speak on the specific legal proceedings because I don't think that's necessarily something I can speak towards. But I can say or speak towards the greater effect that it has politically and the greater effect it has on people, right? And it's just very unfortunate, I guess. It sounds too dismissive in a way to just call it very unfortunate, but better words escape me at the moment. But it's very unfortunate that the law is structured to this way, where we consider this and further consider this and set further precedent that this sort of behavior, where we can show up and intimidate people, is normal. And I've come across the BS arguments of, well, these Antifa thugs that just want to destroy stuff is a danger to people. And let me tell you, where's the Antifa thugs, so to speak, going around murdering people? Where are they going around shooting people? It's not something that happens. Like any case that I have come into, or somebody trying to bring this to my attention for the sake of the debate and the argument. I had one guy earlier say, in New York, they killed a pawn shop owner, a black pawn shop owner, because he was defending his pawn shop in the riots. And a quick Google search will tell you, if you search even that, just kind of like those key phrases, that I think his name was looking it up not long ago. Danny Dorr or something like that was his name. He was a 77-year-old man who was the neighbor of the pawn shop owner, and that the robbery of the pawn shop that he ended up getting shot and killed in was miles away from where the BLM protests were happening, and long after the protest had dispersed and concluded. And essentially, that robbery had no connection to the protest whatsoever. But of course, you're going to have these people who misconstrue these things quite on purpose in order to extract that point, right? Yeah. And it's getting to the point now where you're going to normalize your so-called Antifa thugs to bring weaponry and to escalate the violence, because now you've set the precedent that, especially in open carry states, that is perfectly normal to just show up and intimidate these people. And when you say that, they have the right to defend themselves against these violent rioters, even if they're not hurting or killing anybody, they're destroying livelihoods and stuff. Again, the destruction of their livelihoods is tied to capital and capital interests. if the destruction of certain property is going to disrupt an individual's life in that capacity out of the fallout of political stress, where we know in a lot of cases the most effective protest that has gotten change for greater change for working people, for average people, for the private citizen, when you have real change happening on that level, it usually, unfortunately, involves destruction of property, because anything less doesn't change anything. If you're not madly inconveniencing the system, then the system doesn't find itself a reason to change. So now, due to these sort of like the yin and yang of it, starting to snowball and feed each other, and the Rittenhouse trial, whether you agree with the legality of its outcome or not, and believe that, say, the defense presented enough of a reasonable doubt that he could not be found guilty, even if we could agree on that, what the laws and the culture and the history that led to that point of it happening all deserve critique in the fact that they are deeply flawed and play in favor of capital over human life, and indoctrinating people into further believing that. And that this fallout will further normalize these sort of things happening. And then leftist protesters, pro-BLM protesters, anti-racist protesters, people who are trying to fight against these institutional systems are going to find themselves greater threatened and find greater need to escalate their tactics. And I'm not trying to speak to whether that is right or wrong here. I'm not going to make immediate commentary on that. It's not a subject I'm just going to dive into at the moment. But it's sort of a formulaic thing, right? Like A plus B equals C. If you have people squeezed and desperate, and then you escalate their desperation, they are going to act in desperate ways. And I'm sorry, a 17-year-old kid traveling to defend a car dealership to help out cops and help out the defense of property at the extent of human life is not one of those extremes. We're talking about people being murdered by institutional power structures like the police without accountability. That's what they're trying to fight against. Right? So these are unequal things. If you want to talk about fighting authority, if you want to talk about resisting authority, and you want to talk about resisting institutional things that hold us all back, there's one side that's doing that and one side that's defending it. And oddly enough, these different sides, or this one particular side that defends institutional power and that defends the status quo and likes the status quo, very much has this weird habit of wanting to present themselves as rebels. Because the people who want to change this system and want to challenge it and want to ultimately try and create conditions that are better for more people and have greater empathy and have greater sense of humanity towards each other. Since this is a threat to the institutional power, if you can have a certain faction of the public believe that to defend this structure, to defend Western civilization as we know it, is not only noble and good, but you're the one who's fighting against the power, right? And that's what brings me to the next subject. I like how this headline actually goes here. Kid Rock rants about snowflakes and fake news on terrible new song. I just like how they put that right out there, that the song is terrible. I'm going to play a little section of the video. I watched it earlier. I mean, Kid Rock has always been a cheese bag, in the sense of like, at least it was cheese bag fun. Like, you remember the song Cowboy back in the day. I think we all sort of knew that it was sort of a bad song in the sense of that it was like just really cheesy, and it was like sort of a self-parody of what obnoxious Southern rock could be like. But I'll give it to its credit, it was fun. At least it was fun. And talking about a cowboy and the, horseback and the sunshine shining or whatever shit he was saying in there, it's kind of relatively harmless. And in fact, I think even that song he references punk rock and the Clash and how he likes the Clash. Let me tell you, buddy. Let me tell you, kid. Joe Strummer would not appreciate the sentiments of the lyrics that you're getting into whatsoever. He would think it's goofy as shit. In fact, fellow Canadian rocker Danko Jones, love the guy, on his Twitter, I suggest checking it out. He ripped on this, basically saying this is embarrassing to see, a bunch of like, rednecks in fur coats, or like, people in fur coats trying to pretend to be redneck rebels while being like the rich overclass. And before I get even like a little here, I'm going to pull that back up again. Before I get even further into this, little background to the if there's just so many layers of hilarious, I'm trying not to get to distracted in everything that I'm thinking. But there's a band from Hamilton that is featured in this song. I think it's their song, and Kid Rock essentially just kind of like adds his thing on top of it, and that's essentially like, what this song is. They're called Monster Truck, and I used to like Monster Truck way back in the day when I was in a punk rock band. We both ended up in a radio Battle of the Bands contest together where 80 competing bands, or 80 or more, basically submitted a song, and the ones that were voted amongst the top played the Battle of the Bands show together. And my old band, formerly known as Die Standing, a political punk rock band, came in, I believe we came in third, if not fourth, out of the 5 finalists. And Monster Truck came in first. And they did sound good that night. They had an idea of the sound they were going for, and the sort of like riff rock, Black Sabbath meets Deep Purple sort of 70s revivalist sound that they were going for. I had a bit of props for that. Like, guitars sounded good, riffs sounded heavy, they had a certain energy, plus Hamilton pride. But over the years, my interactions with like the members of this band just on social media became weirder and weirder. Like, for instance, this is their top pinned tweet on their social media right now, on Monster Truck's social media. Yeah. So it's a retweet by Cynthia Loomis, who is a conservative Republican U.S. Senator, saying, "Great leaders do not fear the future. America could win the future by embracing Bitcoin as hard money that can be used to stabilize the U.S. currency and undo the tailspin begun in 1971. The tailspin that began in 1971. There's so much more I could get into in just that last little statement alone. But Hillary Clinton fears Bitcoin will undermine dollar as world reserve currency. And it's brought to you by Bitcoin Magazine. I'm sure their view on this subject is very fair and balanced. But yeah, your magic internet coins are gonna to stabilize the economy. Just the amount of like they're just like right into this crypto stuff. They're right into this, rebelling against the centrist liberal status quo. Meanwhile, when you're standing up for conservatives against the liberal centrist status quo, what you're really asking for is just more of it. Whatever, whatever's wrong and destabilizing the economy that causes class divide, when you signed with conservatives on that end of things, you're just going to end up with more of it. They're all about that class divide. Tell me a conservative that doesn't love rich people, rich corporations, union busting. Find me a conservative that is staunchly pro-union, for example. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to do that. So it's pretty obvious on what's when you're talking about fighting against the status quo of liberal centrism, what this particular side wants out of the deal, right, is more of the colonialist attitudes that I've been arguing against essentially this entire episode. And this is why we say it all ties into white supremacy, that it all ties into, corporate greed and that kind of status quo. Your problems aren't going to be solved by simping for the rich, my friends. Their interest is in us being divided. And Kid Rock is here to help in that division by... Oh, God, I just love this shot, too. This is the only woman you see in the entire video, by the way, which, I guess props to Kid Rock for not just having, ladies shaking their booties, but as objectification like you would typically see in this sort of fare. No, we just have the news lady with the last name Demon Camp on there. What is what? You can't tell me they didn't choose that name it's some sort of weird dig. I don't want to get diving in too quickly, because I'm not going to show this whole video because I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for copyright or not. But I just wanted to read a bit more of a description of the sort of things that happen in this video to kind of prime you up for the small section that I'm going to show to you. First of all, the name of the song is Don't Tell Me How to Live. Like anybody is telling this rich ass motherfucker how to live. He grew up in a mansion in Michigan. His parents owned multiple car dealerships, and he presents himself as this, bootstrapped, came from nothing, made it rich because I'm just so awesome kind of guy. And he's had his road completely paved in gold his entire life. He is the rich elite that he is trying to act like he is not, which is, honestly quite typical of this type. You have a lot of, look at Duck Dynasty, for instance, right? A bunch of absurdly bourgeois motherfuckers, playing wholesome Southern everyman, for the sake of more money and image, really. And so, despite he's wearing a shirt that says social media sucks, throughout the video, Kid Rock spews a series of verses that read like angry uncle's tweets about the libs. And not to mention, the band Monster Truck is fairly active on social media, and they're kind of promoting that message too, but whatever. A section of the lyrics here. A nation of pussies is our next generation. And these minions and their agendas. Every opinion has a millennial offended. But this amendment, one, it rings true. And if you don't dissent, bitch, then see number 2. There's so much to unpack there. Well, he also laments against everybody getting a trophy. And then talk about how every millennial is offended. Don't you ever look at yourselves, Gen X and boomers? You're the ones who raised our generation. In fact, if I remember quite correctly, anytime when I was in, I did house league sports, I played hockey. growing up. And it was a financial strain for my parents to do so. My parents didn't have multiple car dealerships growing up. To be sure that I had something extracurricular and within my interest to do, like playing hockey, was quite financially straining. But they made it work, and it's something I deeply appreciated. But let me tell you, when we were given our participation trophy at the end of the season, where we got like our own little statue just for saying we were part of the team, whether we won the championship or not, you were part of the team, you did the thing, you worked hard. Here's your little recognition for that. Let me tell you, most of the kids did not give a shit about that trophy. I remember not giving too much of a shit about them. It was a nice little like keepsake for the sake of the like memory. But I didn't consider it a trophy by any means. Like I really won something when I damn well know I didn't. You know, like how warped are you? Do you think kids are that fucking stupid? You know who that trophy was really for? It was for you, the parents that paid the money to get the kid into the hockey so you could feel like the kid got something out of it. It's a trinket. It doesn't mean anything. The whole idea of participation trophies in that essence was a show for the parents to see their kid holding the trophy and feel a little sense of pride. And yeah, like, do you think I held on to those trophies and kept them on my shelf? I did for the ones that I actually had for championship trophies. The couple times my team either did win the championship or at least made it into the championship. Sure, I held on to those ones a little bit. But, you know, after a few years, you have this handful of participation trophies. You don't give a shit anymore. Like, do you honestly think when these kids get handed these sort of like, you know, participation trophies, so to speak, that they really feel like that fucking cool about it? Are you dumb? It's really quite baffling to me. And even moreover, in the lyrics, he compares himself to Bruce Springsteen, which again, Bruce Springsteen, working class power, union man all the way, pro-union guy, very progressive. He ain't going to be on your side here, kid. You're invoking this guy's name like he's the boss. Like I'm like Bruce Springsteen because I'm the boss, but Bruce Springsteen being the boss, he'd fire your ass, dumbass. So, okay. So I'm going to get, let's play this section of the video. Because I just wanted to, this is like kind of the funniest part about it. Yeah, here we go. Okay, let's pull this up. Yeah, in my opinion, it's the funniest part. Soar like an eagle, they sing, as if this isn't the most Freudian phallic thing you've ever fucking seen in your life. Like he mentions how he like swings dong and it, like, who are you trying to convince? The level of insecurity that's kind of at play in this video. And what's funny is like the guy from Monster Truck, I saw him say on social media earlier that it's like, you know, some people are gonna get mad, but I don't give a fuck. It's like, let me tell you, nobody's mad at this. This is way too fucking goofy to be mad at. Like, do you honestly think you're saying something edgy? Like the whole participation trophies line and millennials are so sensitive. Meanwhile, that's you just complaining that millennials or the ostensible millennial politics are challenging you to change the status quo, and it's offending you so fucking much and inciting your insecurities so fucking much that you need to retaliate in this way is it's just so precious on multiple levels. But yeah, like shooting his gun on this giant middle finger. Like, could you just try any harder? It's amazing. I get stronger every day. That's why I feel like these weak millennial snowflakes are ruining my freedom and my right to live because I'm so tough. And like it's the saying things like, I think he says something like some sort of line like, I'm the only one standing that still says fuck you. Like, you're the only one making rebellious music. You know what the most cutting edge and rebellious album I've heard in years is? If you want to check out real punk rock, if you want to check out resisting real systems of oppression, listen to the band Gloss. Acronym GLOSS. And their single EP that they put out before making it huge and then breaking up because they didn't want to be huge was called Trans Day of Revenge. If you want to check out what real angst and real rebellion sort of sounds like, as a vast contrast to this cosplay pro-Republican, pro-rich people, because Kid Rock even brags about being rich in this song, like, oh yeah, thanks, that's real relatable to the rest of us, kid. Even the band Monster Truck that you're playing with, who, being a Canadian rock band, you know, they're probably doing okay, but they're probably not fucking rich like you are, rubbing it in that very song. Oh, it's just so goofy. Here, let's keep going for a second here. Oh, lots of shots of smoking. They're drinking whiskey, arm wrestles. It's so fucking manly, man. Oh man, the big cock rocket middle finger. Oh, it's the pit bull with sunglasses. Shit, man, that's fucking rad, man. Wait, I gotta point this out. Yeah, you probably noticed the red hat there. Okay, wait, let me see if I can get that again. Yeah, there it is. Make America Kid Rock again. Like, you know, like, what side of the political offense they're trying to promote here, right? I wonder if Coors Light sponsored this at all. Look, there it is. There's the thin blue line, black and white American flag on his shirt there. At least I think that's the thin blue line. I wonder what kind of graphic is on his shirt. We're just supposed to believe that these guys are like inherently anti-elite and anti-power because they're big, tough, bearded men with tattoos. But like right there, you're just advertising how in love with the power you are. Oh, got him with the middle finger. Middle fingers are so tough. Oh man, that's edgy. I've gotten so many middle fingers in this song, and it's wounded me so much. Don't know how I'm ever gonna fucking recover. But it's just like dudes in overalls.
You never tell me shit. You'll never flip my script because I'm more outrageous than the Vegas Strip. You're like Mayberry, bitch. I'm hard and crisp. High risk hillbilly, but I'm filthy rich.
Yeah, high risk hillbilly, but I'm filthy rich. What's the last thing you've done that is high risk? What have you ever done that was high risk? And yes, you'd be filthy rich regardless of making music or not, because again, just look up what Kid Rock's house looked like growing up, and see if you buy the whole concept of him being the working class, gritty Detroit guy. When, you know, several acres of land with fucking horses on it. You know, just super relatable to the average working class person and the working class person's interests, no less. Just, it's all very relatable. Oh, fuck. Absolutely hilarious. And like, kid, you know, what is it, like 2012 called? They want their millennial zingers back. You're about like 10 years too late on this commentary. Like I'm pretty sure the trophy, the participation trophy commentary ran out about 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it lasted a couple years longer than that. But yeah, the fact that they really unironically seem to think that this is some sort of like really cool fuck you. When the who's going to be buying this? Who's going to be buying this song? I'm going to predict majority of people like that are not young and struggling to make it in today's world. It's going to be mostly your older people who have become bitter about, I don't know, young people being proud of being who they are, so they come out as gay. Oh, this generation's just too sensitive. They're coming out and being true to themselves, and I have to see it. They're just way too sensitive. Like, it's ridiculous on its face. It's so absurd. Like, you know, it becomes politically offensive on a systemic level, but something like this, how could it be offensive? It's so middle of the road, appealing to something you already know can be easily sold. Right? And then comparing yourself to all these other people who are, you know, actually fighting for people's rights and the status quo. Like the lead image on this song, I just wanted to show this too, just to give you an idea of how they're marketing it, right? Got to show you this. Yeah, this is the cover of it. Open image, new tab. There we go. Right? Like the Statue of Liberty wearing a mask. Yeah, Canadian band playing with them, by the way. I think it's really great when you get like that much of the American iconography in it. Don't tell me how to live. Statue of Liberty wearing the mask. Like, you know what kind of messaging and what kind of person they're trying to reach and grab, and whose money they're trying to grab. Classic right-wing grift. And Nat's just come in to give me a shot of whiskey. Say hello to Nat, who's not co-hosting with me tonight because she has her one of her partners over to, you know, hang out.
And I'm packing and I'm busy.
And packing. Yeah, we're packing and getting ready to go. Thank you, baby.
Love you.
And yeah, I'm just getting ready to sign off. I didn't think I'd go for the whole hour, but turned out, yeah, this Kid Rock monster truck thing is just is too fucking funny. It is like a gold mine of like a concentration. A wadded ball put into a condensed aerosol can of boomer cringiness. That's good stuff. Well, that said, let's sign off. I honestly don't know when my next episode's going to be. Hopefully not too long, but like I said, life is crazy right now. We got a place out in a little suburb of Ottawa. We're going to be suburbans now, so feel free to make fun of me for that. I'm sure I deserve it. We're going to be suburbans now in a little place called Kanata, which is just a little suburb outside of Ottawa. Kind of think like if you're from the Toronto area, it's kind of like Mississauga, or if you're from Hamilton, it's kind of like Stony Creek, that sort of idea. Or if you're from New York City, it's like Queens or something like that, I guess. So yeah, hopefully it won't be too long. But yeah, our moving date is like middle of next month. And so, yeah, just a lot of moving parts right now. But thank you so much to, if you tuned in today, or even if you're just watching this after it streams live. Really appreciate y'all tuning in as much as you do and participating in the comments in the chat when you do. And yeah, once we're settled in the new place, I'm going to have a much more luxurious studio space. Let's put it. This space I'm in, you can't really see outside of the screen parameters here, but it's pretty cramped. So hopefully I'll be able to, literally and figuratively spread my wings a little bit more once we're settled out there. So stay tuned for more music, more podcasts coming up. Probably a lot more so in the new year, like I said, when we're settled in the new place. Hopefully Nat will get back in the regular routine of playing co-host again, since seems like we're going to start doing this more regularly on Sundays. But yeah, anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to the Rough Report. I am Jimmy Ruffian. Stay rough.